I'm not supposed to say platform names, but this platform I'm pointing at for some reason cut the live session off itself. I'm not sure what triggered that or why it triggered or why it's doing that. I haven't gotten any messages saying that we're not allowed to go live. So, but it is what it is. If you'd like to share it live with somebody, if not, we'll still record it. We'll still put it out, whatever the case might be. Tadah Mashabakhe on any virtual real estate, any virtual platforms that you're joining us in, whether joining us live or watching or later on watching this. We appreciate you so very much. As always, we give our honor and praise to the Most High. We give our praise and honor to Him for my wife, the Honorable Amma, who lives a life that's able to be honored. We're going to go ahead and jump right in. We're going to read Malachi. Once again, we're reading Malachi, starting at chapter 2. So we're going to Malachi chapter 2. We're going to start at verses 10, or we're going to read verses 10 through 13. Once you have it, say amen. Say, I got it. Say, I'm with you. Say, I'm listening. And if you are able, if you can reverence the word of Yah by standing to your feet, we greatly appreciate you doing so in advance and studying the word with us and learning and growing with us today. We once again thank you all. We appreciate you. We hope that you're having a great day. Hopefully, Shabbat Shalom for those of you who use this as Shabbat, as we are instructed to within our culture. How you doing, Sister Tamika? So we're going to go ahead and jump into the lesson for today. Tadah, Maisha Pekhe, thank you once again. We are thankful and grateful for another opportunity to roll with you all. Thank you again. We appreciate you. And we're honored to be with you on today. All right. So we're going to go ahead and get started. We'll say our Bible pledge. You can just repeat after me. We'll jump right in since the time has already gotten away from us. And hopefully those of you on this platform will be able to see and hear us. They literally turned it off earlier. So we got a wild issue. They're not putting it out that we're actually on this platform at all. So that's interesting. But it is what it is. It's part of what we do, getting the word out. We have to be ready to, do the will of Yah and push through no matter what. So we'll see what they do with it. We're not having a great start signal-wise. That's okay. Let's go ahead and get into this word. All right, so you can just repeat after me. This is my Bible. This is my sword. And this will I trust. For Yahashua is Lord. No sword of God shall ever be heard. For this is my Bible, and this is Yah's word. Hashem Yechavach. Amen. In Yechavashim, His name is authority. Let it be done unto us. You may be seated to go back to what you're doing in the presence of the Most High Yah. Tadah Ma'aseh B'chei. Thank you, family. I'm going to go ahead and start reading. So Malachi chapter 2, we're reading verses 10 through 13 tonight. This is part 5 of this series we've been doing. Malachi chapter 2, verses 10 through 13. It reads as follows. Have we all not one Father? Right, matter of fact, I'm going to start at verse 9 to connect the dots from last night. All right, so therefore, have I also made you contemptible and base before all people, according as ye have not kept my ways, but have been partial in law, right, regarding my law. Okay, verse 10. Have we not all one Father? Has not Elohim created us? Why do we deal treacherously every man against his brother by profaning the covenant of our fathers? Right? Why do we do so? Verse 11. Judah, Yehovah, has dealt treacherously, and an abomination is committed in Israel and in Jerusalem. For Judah hath profaned the holiness of Yehovah, which he loved, and hath married the daughter of a strange Elohim. Verse 12. Verse 12. Yehovah will cut off the man that doeth this, that doth this, the master, the teacher, and the scholar out of the tabernacles of out of the tabernacles of Jacob, which means out of the tents, out of the houses, right, out of the dwelling places of Israel, and him that offereth an offering unto the Lord of hosts. Right, and have ye, verse 13, last verse for tonight, and this have ye done again, covering the altar of Yehovah with tears and weeping and with crying out, insomuch that he regardeth not the offering any more, or receiveth in with tabah will at your hand. We've just read Malachi chapter 2, verses 10 through 13. May Yah bless those who read here and especially uphold and do what His holy and righteous word says. You may be seated or go back to what you're doing in the presence of Yah. Shalom, family, and I apologize I didn't say shalom to everybody. We're having some signal issue and everything, and they were turning the lines off the live sessions off, or the evening start lives off. So forgive me for not greeting everybody. How you doing, Sister Tamika, Sister Beck, Brother Alton, Brother Darius. My wife is on, the Honorable Alma. How you doing, babe? Love you very much. Rocklot, Koba, Minister Morel, big Brother Thomas. Anybody watching this live, watching this later on, thank you so much, and thank you for learning and growing with us as we continue through this series. Alrighty. So, we appreciate your presence. Hopefully you get something out of this. We are thankful to have you guys on, even though it took us a minute just to literally get things going. But we're thankful and grateful to have you guys on with us so much. We honor your presence tonight, and we hope that all is well with you. Amen. So let's go ahead and get into tonight's word. Once again, we're in this Malachi series. The series has been called Malachi, A Familial Perspective. If you guys don't recall, let me give you a reminder that this scroll or book of Malachi is actually not known as the book of Malachi. A lot of persons might not know this, but it's actually known, believe it or not, according to Malachi chapter 1, verse 1, this is where you get the title from. It is actually known as the burden of the word of Yahweh to Israel. That is the title, meaning that this word is difficult, right, to give to others. There are many who are not going to listen to this word. There's many who are not trying to be into this word. There's many persons who will not pay attention to what Yahweh is saying, but this word is still something that we should make sure that we are listening to, that we are paying attention to, that we give Yah glory with and through, and that we make it a point to give our best to comprehend and understand what Yah actually has for us, what his will is for us, etc. Okay? So when we get into this, once again, this is known as the burden of the word of Yahweh, right? This is a burden to give to Israel. And we've gone through this already, so we kind of get the gist of this, to where Israel has been messing up, and really, starting in verse 2, we see what's really going on throughout the rest of these lessons, which is Yah says, I love you, and Israel tries to question his love. Yah says, look at what I've done for you. Israel basically says, for real, what did you do for us? Right? Yah says, I loved you and I hated Esau. They say, man, we trying to really stay in bed with Esau and do what Esau's doing. How are you going to tell us that you loved us and suffer? How are you telling us things are wrong about Esau? They're telling us that, he says, you have robbed me. Well, you guys ask the question, how does a man rob Yah? What man rob Yah? Is it our will even to rob Yah? He says, you have robbed me with tithes and with offering. You see? So we see, we're kind of in the midst of this over and over and over again, the same story, the same issue, the same mindset, the same thought process, where persons are literally questioning Yah. And that's really what Malachi is dealing with. There's a burden of giving this word to Israel, the word that Yahweh wants to be given. And this is given and written, of course, by Malachi, right? So all these different things that are going on, all these different things that are happening, all these different things that are taking place, I'm going to hope that you're a bot, because you're going to get reported. So I'm hoping that you're just a bot. Because if you're not, then we definitely got some craziness going on there. Let me see. Reporting you. Let's see. How do we want to report you? I'm going to write something in. I don't even think they have something specific enough for you. Let's see. What was this? Stability. Okay. All right. Let's see. We got you reported. Okay. So I don't know about that whole, whatever that is. I'm hoping that's a bot. I'm going to block you too. All right. So if they come at you for what you said, it's kind of crazy. Anyways, all righty. Excuse me. So how you doing, Brother Rodney? And everybody coming in here, we appreciate you. So anyway, where are we at? Okay. And how you doing? How you doing, Jesus is Lord? Thanks for being on, being part of the community. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I had you as a moderator. I forgot you got another thing. Hold on. Sorry. Excuse me, everybody. Hold on. Okay. All right. All right. So let's say, so where we are, Malachi chapter 2, verse 10 through 13. So we've seen this is actually not known as the scroll or the book of Malachi. This is actually known as the burden of the word of Yahweh to Israel. It is written by Malachi. This title is given to us in Malachi chapter 1 and verse 1. Alrighty. And we've seen that basically this whole thing is a back and forth. Israel, he says, I love you. Israel says, how do you love us? He said, I even went to the point of loving you and hating Esau. They say, prove it to us. He begins to prove it. Then he says, you know what? You guys have gotten to a place to where it's going crazy. And he starts to talk to the priests and remind the priests of how off they have been, to the point to where they've been giving moldy bread, bad grain, bad corn, sick animals, dumb, deaf, blind animals, things of that nature. He's going through all this stuff and showing them, hey, like, you obviously are not giving me what I deserve, especially when it comes to an offering, which is very interesting, because then you get later to Malachi chapter 3, tithes and offering, and nobody wants to talk about that, and everybody says that's something that, oh, we can do whenever we want, but we're having the same conversation, right? You want Yah to give, but you won't give. You want Yah to give you love, but you don't love him. You want Yah to respect you, but you don't respect him. You won't respect his law. All these different things we talked about. How you doing, Sister Tia? Now, that being said, all those things being together, and babe, you should be a moderator. If it didn't say so in the thing, you should be one. Those things being said, we get to this place tonight where we've just read, once again, this is part 5 of the Malachi series. Tonight we've read Malachi chapter 2. We're focusing on verses 10 through 13. And as we focus in and look at what's going on here, in Malachi chapter 2, verses 10 through 13, we're still continuing this conversation. How you doing? How you doing, Sister Carla? Oh, hey, VXSG, VC, etc., etc. That's the best you got? Does it call me a monkey? Y'all, once again, the trolls got to be better. The trolls, even when we don't have that many persons on, the trolls be coming in. I guess, that's what happens, but, y'all all over the place. Y'all got to be better with the trolling. If you just being because I'm black, I look like I look like a shark. Do I look like a shark? I got jacked up teeth. My teeth aren't even shark teeth. Yeah, you got to be better with your stuff, but that's okay. Moderate, thank you, moderators, for doing what you do. Appreciate y'all, right? But a lot of y'all are out of pocket, even in your trolling. You got to do better. You got to be able to at least do something that is not so juvenile. But, we can do this real quick, I guess. I'll deal with you. Since you're putting monkey up, I guess we got to be fair. If we'll report one person, we got to report you too, right? As if you really care, but it is what it is. At least reporting you will make sure that we won't have to deal with all this stuff. So let's see, hate speech. Yep, the monkey thing goes under hate speech. So let's put you there. All right, but thank you for being on. Right? How you doing, Ezra? How you doing? Everybody on all the platforms, they coming live today, even with us just having a few, but we're thankful and grateful. All righty, so here we go. Back to Malachi chapter 2, verses 10 through 13, which is the point, which we're trying to do. All righty, here we go. So, in Malachi chapter 2, verses 10 through 13, and we started at verse 9, really, if you read with us last time, verses 1 through 9 of Malachi chapter 2 last night, you'll discover that he goes deeper into the Levites. He starts talking about the blessings that you guys think you're receiving. He's right that the things that you're taking from the people are the things that are supposed to be put on the altar, and you won't give back to me. He says, this is what I'm going to do to the Levites, to the priests. He says, I'm going to curse your blessings. He says, matter of fact, I've already cursed them. How you doing, Brother Alton? So we're in a place now to where the blessings of Yah, or the blessings that we think might be from Yah, the things we think are blessings from the congregation, assemblies, etc. He said, no, those things that are coming to you, priests, I want you to know they are already cursed. Since you would put defiled things on the altar, since you would put moldy bread and disgusting things, since persons don't even want to come into the temple or come to the tabernacle, right, from their tabernacles, leave their tents, leave their houses, and come to this house, come to this place of worship, come to this Amana Ba'al or Emmanuel, which literally is kind of the same word as saying to he who tabernacles with or inside of us, right? Since persons are so put off by your leadership and you giving me the pieces and they're following your lead and they're saying, why should we give Yah the most when he don't really love us like that anyways? And when you reject Yah's love, you reject him. He says, all right, whatever blessings you think you have, I'm cursing them. Matter of fact, they're already cursed. Now watch as he continues through this, right? He says, verse 10, now this is where we started tonight, verse 10, have ye not all one Father? Now remember, before he's talked about we've left the religiosity or the thought process or the belief system or the nation of our fathers, right? The faith, the things our fathers, the thing our sources, the things that Israel were faithful to, we have left those things. We have stopped worrying about being against Esau, who we wrestled against, right? Who we navatalized, who we naphtali against. We have now decided to start with the one who we were wrestling for and who we were wrestling to make sure that we did not worry about giving up the birthright and the blessing. We have now started to commingle in the mind, spirit, body, soul, psyche, etc. We have now begun to get outside, get out of pocket. So watch this. He says, we not all one Father, or have we not, right? All one Father? Have we not all one Father? Right? Hath Elohim, or have not one Elohim created us? Right? So when we're talking about here, now he's going from our forefathers to talking about who is our Father. I know we should all know this already, but I'm just asking to make sure we're thinking the same. Right? He's going from thinking about all of our fathers, forefathers, and now the focus is on Yah, our Abba, our source, our Alav, or Aleph, our one, the one we should be one with. He says, have we not all one Abba? Right? Alav, Abba, one Father, right? Whole Father, Holy Father, first, put the Father first. This word in Hebrew would have so many different names, right? Or these two words, rather, put together, would have so many different meanings. But have we not one source? If we are Israel, right? We can only have one source. We can't go Esau and Israel. We can't go in the world and in the kingdom. We can't say, okay, it's Yah and it's, we can't say it's Yehoshua and Jesus. It's got to be one. How you doing, Sister Shirley? Is there not one Abba? Is there not one source? Is there not one Father? Right? He says, then after that, and once again, we're Malachi chapter 2, verse 10 right now. Then he says, and hath not one Elohim created us? How many Elohims do you have? How many so-called gods are you supposed to worship? Right? How many belief systems are you supposed to have? How many fathers or sources of your existence are there? He's asking specific questions. To the Levites, right? He's talking to Israel in general, but now he's really focused. He's been focused since chapter 1, verse 6, I believe. He's been focused on the priest and the Levites. And even the covenant, if you recall, there's a covenant, a specific covenant that every Levite is supposed to have with Yah. So if we come outside of covenant, right, Yah has a huge problem with it, to the point to where he says, whatever you think blessings are, whatever gifts you've been receiving, whatever you've been taking and only giving me a piece of, he says, no, I curse it. Right? And I let you know right now, Asham Yachava, that for those Levites, that for the priests that will continue to have a Balaam spirit, that will continue to take what Yah tells us is his word and says it's specifically supposed to be dealt with in a certain manner, and you would go ahead and do something outside of the will of Yah. I'm here to tell you, beloved, right? Especially for the priests, especially for the pastors, the apostles, the bishops, the overseers, the reverends, the deacons, the deaconess, the prophets, the prophetesses, the evangelists, right? If I missed your title, throw it in there. For all of you, right? I'm here to tell you that Yah says he has cursed your blessing. If the shoe fits, wear it. If it doesn't, take it off. So what he's saying to us is, some of us who are sitting up there trying to figure out why is nothing working? Not all of us, right? But to be honest, some of us need to take this into account. When we're not executing, especially, what is the context? See, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, and I don't even know if I hate it. I love it because that's what y'all call me to be. Let's say I take joy in the name in Yah's will. I don't know. I take no extra joy, or I do not get joy specifically from telling you something that might cause you to have to look at yourself a little different. I take no extra joy, or have no joy specifically in that. But I do have to be honest with you. If not, what am I here for? Correct? Right? I got to be honest with you. If I'm not going to tell you the truth, why am I coming up in front of you, right? Just stop listening. So, in all honesty to you, beloved, in all honesty to you, my sister, in all honesty to you, my brother, in all honesty to you, to my children, my fathers, mothers, aunts, uncles in the Lord, etc. If you are a priest and you are not giving Yah what he deserves, what you tell everybody your so-called blessings are cursed. How you doing, Brother Jermaine? Praise Yah, servants of Yahshua. I see you, right? If you won't give Yah what is his as a Levite, and you keep giving him the moldy bread, the bread you won't eat, you keep giving him the bad fish, right? The fish that has ick all of it. You keep giving him the sheep that are blind, right? You keep giving him the goats that are cancerous. You keep giving him the animals that have a limp because they have broken bones. And so they might as well be put out their misery anyways. And you give them the things that you wouldn't give to your friend. You wouldn't give it to the person you pay rent to. You wouldn't give it to your, some of you priests out there who's still dating and stuff and doing stuff. You wouldn't give it to your side piece or your boyfriend and your girlfriend and all that stuff. You wouldn't give it to them, but you keep giving it to Yah. Yah says that you are cursed, and everything you consider to be a blessing is cursed. And by the way, we should take note of this, those who follow after some of these jokers, because this means that if what they have is cursed and they present it to you as a blessing, that means that now you are cursed. If they're taking the word of Yah and they're changing it, then that means that you are cursed. If you are accepting it, and you should know the law greater than the scribes and Pharisees, at least know the law enough to know that when they're changing stuff up and when they're doing things outside the will of Yah, not following what our forefathers believed and not following what Yah himself as our father needs as his wife, then you will receive something that is cursed. No matter how much you want to call it barak, no matter how much you want to call it a blessing, it's cursed. I speak that at Sham Yechava because that's his word. This is Zara, at Zara Yechava, right? Or Zara at Yechava, the word of Yechava says, it speaks this, that if we will allow, right, whoever these preachers, these false preachers are, these false leaders, these ones who will not give what Yah says give, then there's a curse. Right? This extends down to his people, to the whole nation. But this is talking heavy right now to the Levites, because the Levites have taken on they're supposed to have the responsibility of guiding the people correctly, but since the people really don't want anything to do with Yah and they're trying to deal with Esau, the Levites are like, well, shoot, hey, we're not getting as much, or they're not really giving what they're supposed to. We're going to give Yah the leftovers, and we're going to leave it on the temple. And so Yah's question once again in verse 10 of Malachi chapter 2, it says, have we not all one source, and hath not Elohim created us? Then what's the question? He says, why doth, right, depending on what version you have, why do we deal treacherously every man against his brother by profaning the covenant of our fathers? The question, Yah's question, actually this is the prophet's question, but Yah leads in Vakagudash ultimately, right, penning this for us, right? But Malachi asks, because he's a prophet, he's talking to his brethren, fellow priests. He says, hey, if Yah's our father, if he's our source, and only one Elohim could have created us, and only one who is in charge of the law we're supposed to give to him, why are we, watch this, profaning the covenant of our fathers? As Levites, we have a covenant. Now, persons aren't catching this part too, and I haven't really gotten that much into it into this so far, so if you would allow me to go a little in depth into this tonight, I won't hold you guys too long. However, we got to do what we're called to do tonight. You must comprehend that one of the biggest covenants that Levi has is what? Leading Israel, yes. Doing what Moses did, yes. Doing what Aaron did, yes. But what is that? One of the biggest things that the Levites are there is not only to make sure, which we're supposed to keep the law and preach the law and lead and guide and direct and even be the person of the Sanhedrin, which means that we're supposed to be the person that lead even in various positions, from lawyer to the person who journals down things, to the person who keeps record, to the scribe who's writing the word and all these different things, and the masters who are the teachers, the malachs, etc. But now, watch this. One of the biggest things that Levites have to do, we're coming up on Day of Atonement, so we should know this. One of the biggest things that Levites have to do is give offering and sacrifice on behalf of themselves and behalf of all of Israel. So it's interesting, the ones who are in charge, the Levites, who are not supposed to have jobs, they're not supposed to work in the field. So all they make is a percentage of what's given. But even out of that percentage, they are supposed to give. However, the people are disillusioned and disenfranchised, right? Or are in an illusion, a strong delusion, actually. They're in a strong delusion, right? And basically what's happened is that they have decided that they want to party and be part of Esau and do stuff, but they know where they come from, so they're trying to do both. They're trying to say, okay, we'll go ahead and give a little bit over here and stuff, but we really trying to give and party and live and travel and do all these things that are more important, than Israel being a nation under Yah, right? And so they don't want anything to do with it. And the Levites who are there are just minded, they just pretty much, it's politicized. It's like when a person's running for president and running for mayor, etc. These persons just want, hey, okay, well, I don't have land, I don't have this. The only way I can make something is what y'all give. So I'll take whatever it is, the scraps, and I'll do the same thing the people do. But Levites, you have a covenant. Part of your covenant is mandated that you would give offerings, right? It's mandated that you yourself would give offerings, not just for you, but also on behalf of the people. But yes, even you yourself. Some persons miss this. Malachi chapter 15. Matthew chapter 15. There's only 4 chapters of Malachi, excuse me. Matthew chapter 15, right? When you read Matthew chapter 15, you will discover that there's something interesting going on, and you'll miss it, right? If you don't get the cultural reference, where the Levites are coming to Yehoshua and his disciples, and his disciples are, please forgive me if I get this wrong, it's either I don't think that's when they're picking the food, I think it's when they're washing their hands and getting ready to eat, and they ask a question because they are putting certain traditions ahead of the law. So they ask a question, they say, Yehoshua, Rabbi, tell us this, right, trying to catch them on something. Tell us this, why is it that your mans and them, they don't wash their hands to the elbows like the tradition of our fathers? Yehoshua makes a statement. He says, well, you don't take care or honor your mother and father, right? You talk about traditions of your fathers, but you don't honor the law. He says you don't honor your mother and father when they're in need. And a lot of persons miss that. So when he says, it's not what cometh out of a man that defileth him, but it's what goes in. It's not what goes in of a man, but what comes out that defiles him. He's saying their word is messed up, right? He said it's not, and it's not. He's talking about you eating, but he's talking about that Ezekiel 34 preacher who eats off the flesh of the sheep, who's always eating what everybody gives. That's not the problem that somebody gives you something. It's the problem of what you do with it and what you're trying to teach. As persons will miss this, that the religious leaders of the day, they weren't supposed to have jobs in the field and stuff, but they were supposed to honor their parents like everybody else. If they had finance and their parents might need money, their parents should be able to come to their children every once in a while and say, hey, we need help, right? But they didn't want to give any money to anybody, including their parents. So this is what they would do. They set up, basically they would use the house of Yah, they would set it up as like a bank for themselves. And they would put all of their stuff that they weren't supposed to really own, they would put all of it in to this kind of false bank account. And so they would have money but not have money. So if somebody came to their parents came, or their brother, sister came, or anybody, but here he's focusing on their parents. And they would say, hey, their parents would come to them and say, hey, Kofi, I need such and such amount of money. And Kofi being if I was doing a bad, wrong thing, I would just go, oh, no, I don't have any money. Please, I'm praying for you, let's pray, but I don't have anything. And meanwhile, I did, but I would say that, I would say it didn't belong to me, but I could go and access it anytime I wanted. So technically it was mine, but it was not under my name. And technically we're not supposed to have too much stuff that's in our name, more so specifically land, property to a certain extent. You're not really supposed to have stuff in your name. But they would go ahead and money and things that they had access to, they would tell their parents they wouldn't. So Yehoshua is calling them out. So you have the same kind of Levite, the same kind of mentality here in Malachi, where you have Levites who have access to things or are supposed to give the best, and when they get, they're supposed to go ahead and bring the best that they can as well. Just like we talked the other night about Ananias and Sapphira. You're supposed to give your best. And when you honor, or you're supposed to honor your word, if you agree, we're going to give this, agree to what you gave, including tribute, or what we call tithes, and even offerings that are supposed to be given. But the Levites are giving anything they can outside of their best, right, holding the best for themselves. And Yah says, that's why I will curse not only you, I'll curse your blessings. And I'll do this for generations to come. All right? So he says, why is it so the question that's given to the Levites and to Israel is, why do we deal treacherously every man against his brother by profaning the covenant of our fathers? When we don't give what we're supposed to give, and our brothers don't give what they're supposed to give, or if we give and our brothers don't give, or if our brothers give and we don't give, we deal treacherously. We're traitors. Right? By the way, that word traitor and traitor are almost the same thing. The word traitor, right? Trade or traitor, that's why some persons say traitor. It's actually based off of the same word. And traitor, right? So let's say this: if you are one who is a traitor, or if you're one who is considered to pass down tradition, it is considered basically one of two things. This only matters as far as if you're giving it to family or you're giving it to the enemy. Now, what did we start off with in Malachi, right? Or this book that's known as the burden of the word of Yahweh to Israel. The first thing he starts dealing with is Esau versus Israel, and how Israel should know his love because he's loved us and hated Esau. He's loved us and hated the world. He's loved even children that come out the same womb, but he'll love one and hate, which means he'll basically ignore or allow the other to be out on its own. Right? They want to be away from him, he'll let them go ahead and leave them to their own devices. He's loved one, right, and hates the other. This is the whole conversation, and a lot of us are trying our best to deny his love, and so that we don't really have to give the way he says. Because when we say we don't give to him, we don't honor him, we don't love him. Right? If we don't receive his love, then we can't get what he has for it. But we want to kind of play both sides. We want to say, hey, we should get blessings from him while not giving him our best. We should get blessings from the one that we say we don't really love because he don't really love us like that. All he's really supposed to be there for is for us to go ahead and just give us, give us money, give us money, give us money, give us things, give us gold, give us gold, give us gold, give us shoes, give us housing, give us clothes, give us all this stuff, but we don't really have to do anything for him. And he said, and this is what the book of Malachi, this burden, is hard to preach and teach this to Israelites because we, above all now, are, outside of the church. One of the things that we have to be careful about, when we break away from the church, sometimes what we do is we go, okay, anything the church ever said, all of it's wrong. But that's not how a lie works. A lie is based off of truth. There's kernel, even if it's just a kernel nugget here or there of truth, there's still truth. And there was never any indication in the word that you and I were to stop giving to God. And yes, money is desired, but before there was such thing as money, gold. Because guess what? Money is supposed to be based off of gold. But even before that, somebody says, oh, so you're trying to take, fine, sheep, corn, your best offering, your best praise, right? Your first time with him. You were supposed to give unto him. Yeah, it's an attitude that we carry over from Christianity. We were taught we can get something for nothing, right? So now we make excuses. A lot of the persons in the kingdom, in Israel, supposedly, are the first persons to try and keep telling you, oh yeah, we don't have to give tithes, we don't have to give offering. You give what you can. And by the way, I'm not saying you shouldn't give what you can, or I'm not saying that you should go to the point to where you're going broke, right? You should be part of an organization or a people or a nation who live so much within each other that the dollar keeps getting circulated to where it's not even that big a problem. That's part of our issue, is that we're not a nation. When you're a nation, you're not worried about, ooh, this nation that I grew up in, they're not going to take care of me, if we're going to take care of each other, right? That's part of what we're commanded to do. How you doing, Shabbos? Part of what we're commanded to do, correct? Is to take care of each other, to take care of the widow, the orphan, the poor, the stranger. And yet, right? Take care of the elderly. Take care of our children, take care of our husbands, take care of our wives. But we make more excuses as Israel. Remember, even Paul says it's his prayer that Israel might be saved. What? Israel has a fervor for Elohim, but it's not according to intimacy or knowledge, because we have decided to go into everybody else's stuff and not what Yah says. But his word never once says you no longer have to give tribute, you no longer have to give tithes, you no longer have to do offerings. You no longer have to take care of each other. You no longer have to give, when it's time in the seasons and the holy days, give double portion or first fruit and stuff like that. We have to. You no longer have to bring ye the tithes into the storehouse that there might be meat. This is this scroll. We were never told to stop. We were never told to stop. We stopped on our own. So watch this. So let's keep on going. Alrighty. So chapter 2 of Malachi, right? We have broken the covenant of our fathers, right? We have broken the covenant. We are profaning the covenant. We're making it empty even. And therefore we deal treacherously with Israel when we do so. Verse 11, Yehovah, Judah, Yehudi, Judah, hath dealt treacherously, and an abomination is committed in Israel, in Jerusalem. Give me a second. It's going to pause for you guys over here. Hold on one second. Because I had this ready to go. Right. Okay. Okay. I just want to make sure that we got this correctly. Okay. So watch this. So, sorry for the pause. Hopefully everybody's back. So when it says something specific here in verse 11, Malachi chapter 2, verse 11. It says, Judah, right, hath dealt treacherously, and an abomination is committed in Israel and in Jerusalem. This means, so Judah is supposed to be king, but you have a split kingdom, and really the northern kingdom pretty much is getting ready to subside. Second Esdras, northern kingdom is going to be gone because of Assyrians coming in and out too much, and stuff still going on with the Greeks and stuff that's messing with things and stuff. So they're going to be gone in a little bit, right? There's only going to be 2.5 branches, nations, or so-called tribes left, right? It's going to be Judah, who is where Christ comes through as far as who he'll be adopted into, right? So Judah, you'll also have Benjamin stay, and you'll have part or half of Levi. Half of Levi will leave with the northern kingdom, known as Israel at this point. So when you hear Israel, you have to also know when we're talking about. So that back then, if somebody had said Israel, they would have thought of 9.5 kingdoms that were, or 9.5 nations that were coming together to be the kingdom of Israel. They were split in the camp, right? They're split in the camp. And then the southern kingdom is Judah, Benjamin, and the Levites. There's a split in the camp, just like today, there's split in the camp. And so, but either way, it's being dealt with treacherously. So here, watch what it's saying. Judah hath dealt treacherously. That means the kings, the lineage, those who are supposed to be in praise and worship, right? Our praise and worship leaders, oh, they have dealt treacherously, right? And then so we talked about Levi. Levi is the priesthood. Now he says, I'm coming to Judah. So the priests, you guys come first. But now I'm talking to the kings. I'm talking to the royal lineage. I'm talking to whoever of you want to consider yourself Judah, physically, spiritually, otherwise. He says, I'm talking to you now. I talked to all of you. Now, then I started focusing on Levi. Now let me focus on Judah. Judah either dealing with the kingdom, or Judah dealing with Judah, Benjamin, Levi, or Judah dealing with those who are scattered, who consider themselves to still be Judah. He says, you guys have been treacherous with what you've been giving me too. You give me the leftovers, your praise and worship, you give me the leftovers. Benjamin, you front line. When it's time to fight, you fight to make sure you hold on to your stuff, but not for me. Levi, we just talked about you. You as priest, you giving me the molded bread. You giving me the sick animals. You're giving me the unclean, the unlawful. You're supposed to uphold the law, right? But you won't even offer up things that are lawful unto me, right? Now, verse 11, so you've dealt treacherously, Judah, and an abomination, not just a bad thing, an abomination. Did you ever notice that the word nation is in there? I know it's not necessarily exactly there. It's more, it's more connotation to denotation. But have you ever noticed the word nation is at the end? It's abominable to the nation. I said connotation for those who get that word usage, right? The abomination is abominable to the nation. Is committed in Israel. Israel is the northern kingdom. But then it says also in Jerusalem. Jerusalem is in the so-called southern kingdom. You catch that? So Jerusalem, he's saying that Judah, who sits on the throne, it really should be on the throne of all of Israel. Some have already left and started doing their own thing, and they're fighting back and forth. And you're going to see Samaritans and others come out of that, especially when a lot of them will dip out and leave together, right? But even still, he says, whether you're in the northern kingdom, whether you're in the southern kingdom, whether you're out of these lineage of kings, whether you're praise and worship leaders, whether you're fighters on the front line, whether you are Levites, whether you are Simeon, Reuben, right? Whether you are whomever, Naphtali, Dan, Gad, Asher, I'm forgetting these names, please forgive me. But regardless of which brand, he says, all of you guys have dealt treacherously, right? Whether in Israel or even in Jerusalem. But then he goes back to Judah, right? The leadership, the praise and worship, all this. He says, for Judah hath profaned the holiness of Yahweh, which he loved. Going back to what he was talking about before that we went through in the series so far, at one point, we loved Yah. We loved being in position. We loved keeping the law. You couldn't tell us about nothing else. How did we get here? How did we allow so much craziness? At one time we loved Yahweh. Now we talking about he don't really love us, and why should we really love him like that? We have a relationship, we'll still wear the ring, but we messing with Esau now. We'll still wear the ring, but we messing with Babylon. We'll still wear the ring, but we're messing with Kemet again. We'll still wear the ring, but we messing with Assyria. We still wearing the ring, but we mess with the Medo Persians. We freaks with the Greco-Romans. We freaks with the Christianity stuff. But you weren't supposed to, and you never would have before. And watch this. Here's how deep it gets. Family, lineage. How you doing, Sister Deborah? Let's keep going further. Watch this. And hath married the daughter of a strange Alachem. You married the daughters. You married into other families where these families are foreign to our belief system. Love is love. We love with the love of Yah. Right? Even to the point to where now it's not just, your priesthood, it's in your temples, it's lack of offering. He says now your family dynamic is messed up. And person don't want to talk about that. See, that's why I say, don't just talk about only black, white, the red man Esau, the ruddy man Israel, all of that. No. I need you to comprehend. If you are getting with persons, right, and not having any discussion, love is love, and I just love them, and they make me feel great, and blah, blah, and maybe one day they'll come into knowledge of the Most High. Right now, if you're married and you have come into the knowledge of who He is, and you started off in one place in your marriage, and now you're not in that marriage per se, or you don't agree, maybe you both were Christians, maybe you both were atheist, agnostic, that's different. But what I'm talking about is more so the situation where persons are looking for love in all the wrong places, when Yah is love. He's the determining factor. If love is not in your partner's heart, meaning Yahweh is not in your partner's heart, matter of fact, let me stop using the term partner. If love is not in your husband's heart, if love is not in your wife's heart, right? If Yah is not in their heart, then they're not worthy of Yah's love, and they're not worthy of yours. Not to the point to where you should give it a husband. See, yeah, we should love everybody, but the love of an enemy is different than the love of a wife. Right? The love of giving you love as a basic human being is different than loving you as a husband. Oh, nobody wants to talk. See, this is Malachi. See, when you get into these relationships, do you not realize you're giving an offering? Do you have to sacrifice to be in a marriage? Let's see, somebody don't want to hear this. Your marriage is to be offered up. Your marriage, yes, beloved, your marriage is an offering to the Most High. He looks to see how you sacrifice. He looks to see if you'll be a living sacrifice, which is holy and acceptable in your reasonable service. He looks to see that if you will forsake all others. He looks to see if husbands, you will be like Yah, so that your wife can be like the assembly. The assembly can submit to Yah, because Yah is always about his mission. Are you always about Yah's mission? If you are, then the wife, if it's a wife of Yah, the love or the Yah in her will reflect, and the assembly, therefore, the nature of assembly will pop up in her to make sure that she helps you in reaching the goals that you submit to within the mission of Yah yourself. If you're more submitted, she's going to make sure that she lifts you up and builds you up. That's what a Proverbs 31 wife does. She makes her husband's name great in the streets. He's at the gates. He's protecting the city. And she makes sure that the city knows that her husband is in position. But if you're not at the gate, if you're not in position, then what is she following? In this case, though, the husband is Yah, and Israel is the wife. And we as the wife keep telling our husband, what have you done for us? I mean, he created you. What have you done for us? He made you King of Kings, right? He's the King of Kings, therefore you are kings over other nations. What has he done for us? He's made it to where Judah is where the Messiah's lineage comes. What has he done for us, right? We keep saying all this stuff, right? Excuses, rather than saying, you know what, this husband, I'm not talking about Kofi, I'm talking about our husband, Yah, is perfect. Without sin, without mistake. And even when we sinned in our lineage, in our bloodline, he has used us specifically to say that all mankind can be grafted into what we are keepers of. And yet you still keep talking about, how does Yah love us? Will a man rob Yah? How have we robbed thee? These are the questions throughout this whole thing. and Yah's sick of it. He's sick of us making excuses to continue to deal treacherously. Not just to deal with Yah wrongly. It says treacherously and to make this abominable. We have become abomination. We're not even a nation. We have become abomination. Judah has dealt treacherously, and an abomination is committed in Israel and Jerusalem. For Yehovah, for Judah, hath profaned the holiness. Before, the verse before it was, the Levites have profaned the covenant. Judah has profaned the holiness. Don't even care about it. And now have begun to marry into strange families, into foreign families. Because once again, if the family leaves their country and comes into Israel, they're not strange, they're not foreign. They're part of the nation. But we are leaving Israel looking for anybody. And by the way, can I just, sisters, sit tight? I mean, you can listen, of course. And I know y'all going to applaud this. Hopefully you do. Because I'm about to take your side on something. But I'm really taking what Yah says, Holy Spirit. Right? Brothers, have you not thought about that Israel, we Negroes, are some of the worst when it comes? And I'm not, somebody going to think, oh, he just talking about white women. I'm talking about how we talk down about Israelite women. And how we make it a point to tell everybody how Israelite women are trash. And how every other woman is better. I'm not talking about just, oh, you've ran into somebody else, or they have different flesh, they have different color. How you doing, Brother Dwayne? And everybody coming in today. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking specifically about the fact, hey, how you doing, G? I'm not talking about that. I'm talking specifically about, we as Negro men are so bad towards our women, towards our sisters, our mothers, etc. We can't wait to tell everybody why any woman is better. And once again, I'm not just talking about color. Y'all can't wait to talk about how the African woman is better than the Negro woman. Even though a lot of us are the same anyways. But you can't wait. You can't wait to talk about how the Chinese woman would never, the Korean woman would never talk to Koreans about that. And by the way, I'm not saying that to be bad at these women or whatever, say something crazy. I'm talking about listen to these persons. They'll tell you that they have issues too. But you can't wait to down your own people to the point to where you can't wait to say, yeah, these Israelite women ain't worth nothing. Let me go ahead and find somebody else. And then get mad. I know y'all don't want to hear this. But then get mad when the Israelite women, when the Negro women start saying, all right, well then y'all ain't nothing and everybody else is better. You started it, bruh. Because while they wanted to be reversed in nature, right? And they had to really to protect the family, and they started raising us in reverse nature. One of the things that we did is we wanted to be like the men who were the oppressors. And so we treat the women like the oppressors. And we get mad because we're like, well, you guys came up for the oppressors. And there's some truth if we were to go back and forth, but neither side is, both of us are in sin, in iniquity, we need to come out of it. That being said, how do we fix that? One of the ways that we fix it is go back to Yah's will, which is if we train up a child in the way they should go, when they grow old, right? That means we have to train them up. We also have to shelter them. We also have to make sure that they're not getting all this weird information. We have to make sure that they have others around them that believe the same thing. They can see the same value and stuff. So when they grow old, they won't be. See, watch this. Sisters, I'm here to tell you, I know that there's some of these young boys, and they remind you of their fathers, and their fathers ain't worth nothing in your eyes, and maybe they ain't worth nothing overall. I don't know, right? That being said, be careful how you treat these young boys. Right, make sure if they can't be around a father that's righteous, make sure they are around men that are righteous. Make sure that they're connected to a family, a community that checks in on them, that they have somebody to look up to, right? Make sure that you train them up in the way that they should go, and make sure they have the training that they're supposed to get so that when they grow old, they won't depart from it. Why? Because the way that's even talking about it, technically it's talking about a bow coming out of the quiver. I'm sorry, arrows coming out of the quiver, being shot at the bow. It's actually talking about training up a child. It's actually talking about with the language, aiming a child. So then when you release the child, if you aim correctly, and if you breathe in and out correctly, and if you have correct technique, and if you made the bow correctly, if you've taken time out to make the arrow correctly, right, then and when you aim it, no matter what, if you take into account when you're aiming it, hey, it might be a windy day, it might be raining, it might be, you might not be as strong as you normally are, you might be further away with this child, but when you aim them and you release, The goal is to hit the bullseye, no matter what. So as the child is traveling, yeah, if you see how an arrow works, especially the further it is from the target, you're not actually aiming for a straight line. And some of you are thinking that your child is going to be straight. I mean, I hope they're straight in other ways, but I hope you get what I'm saying. They're not going to be going, like they're not going to have, you're going to have to learn how to launch your child so that they can go in an angle to where even though it doesn't look like to the rest of us watching, especially those that are untrained, and releasing the arrow, you might look at the person and say, you're not going to hit the target. But the reality is we know how this works. It's like having a sniper. A sniper knows that if he's 500 yards away, which is nearly impossible on some weapons, but there's some weapons that they actually might be able to do. And 500 yards is a whole level of sniping that others don't get. They have to also take account for wind, right? They also have to have somebody to help them along the way, to be a voice to say, hey, this is what's going on, this is what I see. And when they miss or when they hit the target or whatever, right, they have to be aware of what kind of bullet they're using. They have to be aware of what kind of assignment. Are they allowed, is it a kill shot? Is it a shot to where it's to maim? Are they using a bullet that could rip things apart? And therefore be careful, because if you're shooting that far away, the bullet has to be really, really strong. So be careful you're not hitting or doing something, or there are children around. There's all types of stuff that comes into position. When they take that shot, they're not just taking a shot, oh yeah, this and that. They also have to see how many clicks, and they also have to look in there, right? And you see on there, okay, like the wind is blowing, this way. So all right, if it's blowing east, I got to make sure that I take that into account. So I actually got to aim west a little bit and know that by the time it goes, the wind is going to actually push the bullet back, and so it can hit the target. All these different things. You are aiming your child to hit the target, and you have to take all that into account. You got to be trained to fire the next generation so that they hit the target, so that they do not miss the mark, that they do not sin. Right? This is the type of stuff we're talking about. Well, we have not even taken into account how to build that up. We just go, forget it. We'd rather just go ahead and be with somebody else. At least they'll do whatever. And then after that, we realized that we were worse off with persons that don't even want to come into the kingdom. If they're going to be so-called strangers, let them come as strangers and become Israel, and then they're part of the family anyways. Does that make sense? Some people would say that Pastor Kofi is some kind of racist or reverse racist for that or whatever. Say what you will, but that's what it's talking about. We've gotten to a place now to where we don't even look to marry Israel, right? And if somebody's going to become Israel, they got to become Israel to be worthy of marriage. Right? This is why we say all the time, Ruth is not a Moabitess. Ruth is an Israelite. Right? Rahab is not a harlot of Jericho. She's an Israelite. Sheba, well, that one's a little bust because they were a little loose. But technically, Sheba is supposed to be married into Israel, which is why supposedly King Selassie is supposed to be such a big deal, right? You marry into. That's why it mentions the daughters, because it says they should be married into, but even the daughters, they should be married into, but they should be what? They should become believers. How much more so the son? Remember, every man who comes into Israel, he was supposed to be circumcised. That's a sign that he's supposed to be about the law. So there's no daughter of Israel that should even be married into anybody else, because every man should be in Israel. Even Timothy, he had to do the same thing. Before somebody says, oh, that's Old Testament, Timothy had to be circumcised too. Paul says there's extra reasons why, to be honest, but he still had to follow the law. I know persons don't want to hear that, but it's true. So we have profaned the holiness and have started to marry into other cultures rather than making sure that, hey, this is our nation, this is our culture, this is what we believe. If you're going to come in, you got to be grafted in all the way. It's going to sound wild to some. It's going to sound messed up to some of you. It is what it is. I was kind of nice about this a couple times, even though persons still became, but I'm going to tell you right now, don't ask Pastor Kofi to marry nobody and they're not going to be Israel. I didn't say black or white, did I? Y'all know what I mean. How you doing, Brother Jacob? Check out Brother Jacob and all the great work him and the community over there are doing with them. Right? You hear me? All right, y'all know where I stand on that. I'm not going to explain extra. If somebody's out here trying to say it's, oh, you try to be against white people. You guys know what the belief system is by now, right? If they don't have the belief of Israel, if they're not grafted in, I don't care if they black, white, otherwise. If they're not believing what Israel is, if they're not rolling with the Most High as far as he's concerned, don't ask Pastor Kofi to marry nobody. Don't ask anybody at SOC to marry nobody if it's not going to be two persons of Israel, because even though it's a private marriage, we're not just making stuff up. We're not going against the word. They Israel or they not? Their kingdom or they not? They follow the will of Yah or they don't? All right, verse 12. Yahweh will cut off the man that doth this. This is serious, y'all. I wish persons got how serious Yah is about his word being protected, us being keepers of it, us being a nation, us making sure that everybody is doing the same thing. Watch this. Verse 11. Judah has dealt treacherously. Before that, Levi had dealt treacherously. Now Judah has dealt treacherously. An abomination is committed in Israel and Jerusalem, for Judah hath profaned the holiness of Yahweh, which he loved, and hath married the daughter of a strange Alacham. And watch this, the very next verse, verse 12. Yahweh will cut off the man that doth this, that doeth this, that does it, that doth it. All right? He cutting us off. He cutting anybody off who's not going to be obedient, even to making sure that if you're going to be married to anybody, that anybody who is married should first be Israel. If they're not, right? Or if you want to say first be kingdom, either way, but we got to be about this law. If they won't follow the law, if they're going to be lawless, they're in iniquity. Remember, the word iniquity means achival. Achival is evil, where you get the word evil from. So if somebody is evil, which is to live backwards, right? E-V-I-L, backwards is L-I-V-E. So if they're going to live backwards outside of the will of Yah, then there is no... We will not set a precedent for allowing foolishness like that. Hebrew Israelites, kingdom sovereigns, persons who are followers of the way, etc. Persons who follow the word, whatever you need it to be. Yes, also fire alarm, sir. I say this in this room, the thing chirps, not because it's not a fire alarm, not because it's not a battery. It chirps because there's something with the electricity. I do a lot of live sessions in here, especially in the evenings. I'm not cutting any wires. I'm not an electrician, and until I can afford to actually have some things really rewired in the whole house, unfortunately, when you're listening in the evenings, you'll have to hear a chirp. At least when I'm at this residence. So it is what it is. All right, thank you for being on. If it's too much for you, I can see it. You know, for some persons, they say that it's so confusing because they think the whole house can burn down or whatever. I hope you have a great day, right? For those who can stick around, thank you for being on, though. No offense, no shade. I'm just being honest. I hear it like so many times. When persons say it, I get it. You know, just can't do anything about it right now. It is what it is. All right? Okay. So, the Lord will cut off the man. Now, this is the same kind of conversation that happens, right? When Yahweh says he will cut off those who don't follow the holy days. How you doing, Minister Raj? Same type of conversation. If you won't do what Yah says, right? If you won't do what Yah says, he says he will cut you off. Well, same thing here. He says, since you guys deal treacherously, and now you get into a place to where you'd rather marry outside of covenant, outside of will, outside of the law, etc. He says, I'll cut anyone off who does this. Remember, he said to the Levites, you Levites are so out of control with giving me fake versions of offerings or things that are unclean or things that are bread that's moldy or animals that are unclean and all this stuff. He said, I'll go ahead and the things that you think are blessings, I've already cursed them. Here he says in verse 12, I will cut you off, master and the scholar out of the tabernacles of Jacob. He says, so the teacher and the disciples. Marach, right? And disciples. Those who are the Levites teaching this, foolishness, and the ones that follow them. He said, so that's why I said earlier, remember, you got to make sure that you know the laws greater than the scribes and the Pharisees. He says, no excuse. Even if you're not a Levite, you know what you're supposed to do. You know what they're supposed to do. You know what you're not supposed to do. If you'll follow that foolishness, he says, I'm cutting you off. And him that offereth an offering unto Yahweh of hosts. He says, so I'm tired of you guys. Remember, because the offerings they've been given, once again, even your marriage, that's what we started talking about marriage for. Even your marriage is an offering. What you read is an offering. What you do with your children, you offer them up to the Most High, right? Not just only your money, but even, yes, even your money. The food that you get. If you get food, do you give that to somebody? Do you get 10 oranges and make sure somebody gets 1 out of the 10 and give them the best, right? Do you get 10 minutes and make sure y'all gets the best of those 10 minutes? Do you have an off day and you got 10 free hours? Do you make sure y'all gets the best out of the hours? Or the first, or make it the same? The first hour is the best hour, give it to him. That's right, it's a covenant. It's definitely a cultural covenant if we want to go there for sure. All right. Verse 13, last verse we read tonight, last verse that we'll go over tonight. And this have ye done. Who is he talking to? Ye, plural. Who is he talking to? At this point, all of Israel. This have ye done. Again, covering the altar with tears. Now, once again, you were putting profane stuff on the altar. You're putting stuff that's diabolical. You're putting abominations. You're making abomination. What is the abomination? The stuff that you're offering up to Yah is trash. You wouldn't give it to governors, he said. He said you wouldn't give it to governors. You wouldn't give it to the heads of your family. You wouldn't give it to somebody who you hate. You hate tax collectors, but you give them your best. You make sure you give them what's theirs. You don't even make it deny. You don't even try to figure out how to make sure that you can go ahead and be non-citizen national audit. You just say, hey, go ahead, take 30, 40, 50% out of my check. But you'll argue with Yah about his. He says, I got a problem when you have that mindset. This have you done, covering the altar of Yahweh with tears. While doing this, while giving me the worst that you have the nerve to cry on the altar and put your tears on there. And weeping with crying out. You crying out loud, you screaming, Yah, please, please, Yah. And you made $10 and you won't give them one. Well, how could I pay my bills? My phone bill is worth $50. Well, if your phone bill is worth $50, you only got 10, you can't pay it anyways. Go ahead and have 9. Right? But you come to the altar crying. Nah, if you just save me this time, I promise I'll never do it again. Right? He says, but you won't give me what we had a covenant on. You promised me that you would give. Right? As we talked about with Ananias and Sapphira, you promised. You know what's up. You said, if I do this, you would do that. I heard you say it. Remember we talked about that? He says, and what we've been going over in this, he literally says, I heard you say it. It'd be one thing if you didn't say, he said, I heard you promise me that you would give it to me. And yet you keep telling me why it's impossible or why you shouldn't. You come with weeping and crying out, insomuch that he, which is Israel at this point, the Israelites he's talking about, that he regardeth not the offering. I'm sorry, excuse me. Let me run that back. I just said it wrong. Right? So much that he regardeth not the offering anymore, that Yah would not even regard the offering anymore, or receiveth it with any tabah will, any positive will. Right? Any positive will at your hand. In other words, remember he said, what you consider to be a blessing, he's allowed to be cursed. He knows that everything you bring to the altar is jacked up and is the least and it's stuff that you wouldn't give to anybody else. And so now when you offer up your tears don't mean the same thing. Right? These ain't, and I'm just using the modern term, right? These ain't so-called white women tears that get everybody's attention. These are, he said, I'm not listening to the whole crocodile tear, boo-hoo, life is miserable, I can't make it without you. If you can't make it without me, then give me what's mine. That's what, thus saith Yahweh of hosts. It keeps saying that in here. And notice, it's not just saying, thus say Yahweh. It keeps saying, thus say Yahweh of hosts. If you don't know, Yahweh of hosts is talking about him as being over the army. He's over the army. So he's talking about, I'm getting to a point. Like I'm trying to tell you now you're dealing with me. See, I got to come out of being sweet, but keeping it sweet, keeping it nice. Now I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, I lead an army. Mess around if you want. Right? I lead an army. When it says the Lord of hosts, it's not just talking about some random, it's talking about, no. I lead armies, bro. Right? Like I can protect. I can kick persons out. I can do whatever. I ain't doing Sister Quotation. I think I saw you on this, right? He says, I lead armies. I'm not just some random cat out here. I'm not just like these other so-called gods and deists and deities and neters, etc. that you worship. He said, no. You came for the right one today. He said, he let it be known. You deal with me. You deal with one who leads armies. Sometimes you got to remind folk. You ever had somebody be like, I don't really say blah blah. I'm cool. I'm just Kofi blah blah. But if somebody come out and say, but what makes you think da da? Sometimes somebody get a little honoring. I got to be like, well, I'm Pastor Kofi, right? Not trying to be like I'm on that, but sometimes you let somebody know, like you going off doing this and you don't even realize. I know what I'm talking about. You right? Or sometimes my son and I, we playing basketball, this and that. Sometimes, playing the game or something, trash talking stuff happens, which is cool. And he's never really done this, but I've ran into this with other youth or other persons that I've been with, and somebody starts saying something, I have to remind him, like, yo, I'm Mr. Kofi. I'm Dad. Right? Don't forget. Right? Got daughters, baby girl, be doing this, blah, blah, saying this, say that. Every once in a while, you got to remind them, like, yo, ho, I get it. But until you get that together, baby girl, don't call me back. I know you and the daughter, no blah blah, but I need to remind you every once in a while, like I'm still him in your life, right? Don't ever forget it. I'm not perfect, but I know my position. I play my role as well as I can, and I promise you, like you're just not gonna do whatever or say whatever, right? Like sometimes you got to remind him. And Yah's at this place where he's like, hey, let me remind you, Israel, I'm Lord of hosts. I'm Yahweh of hosts. Right? There's nobody like me. There's nobody there's nobody who owns the cattle on 1,000 hills like me. There's nobody who could speak and allow something that was a spiritual thought and innuendo, right, becomes something that becomes what you live upon in the earth. Right? He says, don't forget who I be. I'm Yahweh of hosts. When he hits you with that, you got to pay attention. Right? So when they were doing all that stuff and Israel's wilding out, he keeps saying over and over again, man, I'm Yahweh of hosts. I'm not playing. This is not a nice, right? Remember the name of this scroll that is Malachi or Malachi. The actual name of it is the burden of Yahweh, right? Or even Zara at Yahweh. The burden of the word. Zara at Yahweh, right? The burden of the word of Yahweh to Israel. That's the name of the scroll. This is a difficult message to give because Israelites are so busy in their own head thinking that they all that just because they're Israel, they forget that you still got to be spiritually inclined to do the will of Yah and do his works. To have faith in Yah because of a covenant and have faith in a covenant doesn't mean you do the works of a covenant. And when you don't do the works of a covenant, but you want the other side to do their works, you break covenant. Right? He says you bring your tears and you put your tears fall on the altar. He said, what do your tears mean to me if you can't give me what's mine? Amen. So we'll leave it there for tonight. Tadach Ma Shabbat. We'll be back with this series on Monday evening. Shabbat Shalom to you all. We hope that you all are doing well. We'll see you tomorrow. And yeah, thank you so much. Tomorrow, a lot of stuff on the schedule as usual. 8 a.m. New York time, live session, 10 a.m. New York time, podcast, 11 a.m. New York time, Shabbat school for the babies, 12:15 p.m. New York time, watch party on Clapper. We're going to finish up King of Dreams. So join us for that on Clapper. At 7 p.m. London time, meeting for those in England on Zoom, on WhatsApp. And we'll try to invite some persons. If you guys are interested, let me know. I'll see if I can add you to the group. And then 7 p.m. New York time tomorrow is the men's meeting. Come on. So prayerfully you can join us for something. Or pray for us. Shabbat Shalom to you. Hopefully you enjoy. Our Shabbat and the Gregorian calendar Shabbat are one and the same right now. So Shabbat Shalom to everybody. Prayerfully you rest. Enjoy your rest. Enjoy yourselves. And if for some reason we don't see you tomorrow, just know, as always, that you are loved, you are necessary, you are majestic, you are fearfully and wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be it. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom, my Shabbat Tada. تستيق أتيخرج عن تداخ أخيات أتاين. Come on. All right.
Temptations for